And Naomi, I'm digging the ears. That's awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Did that all come that way, or did you add that?
No, it comes that way. They sell the headset with and without them, but these are not removable. And I also have a matching pink mechanical keyboard and mouse. So it's all like.
Yeah, but why bother selling them without them?
I know.
I don't know.
Of course you would want the ears. That goes without.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There are some new faces here too that people might not recognize. So Sam and Naomi, I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourself a little bit. Put you on the spot for a second.
I can go first. I can go second. Either way. I know Naomi's going to have more.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Before Sam says anything, bow chicka bow wow. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Samuel Carroll. I've been at Black Hills Information Security since 2016. Started as an intern while I was going through my master's program in computational sciences and robotics. Started working there after I graduated. I worked on RITA and AI Hunter for a year, and I've kind of continued working with ACM on and off throughout this past year. So Lisa and I think actually originally bonded as friends over, like, we had mutual friends. We were sitting at a bar, and then she and I just started exchanging Arrested Development quotes for like an hour and a half, I think.
Yeah, it made me really annoyed.
Lisa had been like exasperated because like she tried to make a lot of like nerd references with those guys and they just didn't get it. And then like we sat down and we got each other's like nerd quotes back and forth for like a long time. And that's basically the foundation of our friendship. It's great. I think the John Wayne line specifically from Arrested Development was the one that like started the whole friendship.
I'm not gonna cry about my paw anymore. I'm gonna build me an airport, put my name on it.
Naomi, do you want to say a few things about yourself also?
Sure. So I've been with ACM for about a year now. Most of my work is on the front end for AI Hunter. My interests are painting, as you can see in the background. I mean, I'm not going to like pick it up and show you guys, but I do a lot of like acrylic and oil painting, some pastel and like graphite drawing. I love animals. I love art.
Hey, Shelby's back.
Yes. Yeah. I had to grab this little one. So she's gonna be sitting in my lap for the rest of the webcast.
Cool.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. I don't think she can quite say her name yet, but
A burp counts.
She's presenting today, right?
Yes. Well, Lisa, I guess your choices are you could introduce yourself or you could let me introduce you.
Okay,
Yeah.
Chris, you can introduce me.
uh-oh.
Oh, you're brave, Lisa.
It's less stressful. This is like that whole thing where like you go to class and they're like, let's go around the class and say something interesting about yourself. And you're like, oh God, I'm not an interesting person.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This is actually a webcast we've been excited about doing for a little bit now. Most folks are aware of RITA, our open source project for tracking threat hunting. It's kind of cool. We got Lisa here to be able to talk through this because this has been kind of her bread and butter for the last 5 years or so. Lisa runs the engineering team at ACM. We've got a lot of cool folks. So she gets to kind of herd the cat, so to speak. And with that, Lisa, I'm going to let, Lisa hates me for selling my Subaru, but we can talk about that in Discord while she can't sing. So on that note, Lisa, I'm going to pass the ball to you and let you run with it.
All right. Hello, everyone. This is kind of my first webcast, so there's probably going to be some awkward moments and some nervousness. But basically, I'm really excited to kind of share RITA with you guys. A lot of you guys use RITA already, and that's awesome. It makes me so excited to talk to people that are using the product. I know it's just like so much validation for everything you've been working on. And I love getting feedback. I love hearing about what's wrong with it so that I can fix it. So yeah, any feedback is really appreciated. One of the stuff I see on issues that get brought up is like, one day I need to sit down and learn Go. And that's just not true. We don't have time to sit down and learn languages. I can't stress to you how much of my computer science education was teaching me how to Google and copy and paste. It's like 99% copying and then making tiny changes until you figure out what you need to change. So today I just kind of wanted to go over how to do some basic things with RITA to make it really easy for you guys to try and make it exactly what you guys need it to be. All right, so first of all, we can just kind of go over the necessary workspace, and please do go visit this link and get a full guide. They have copy and paste instructions that kind of walk you through it and make this all really easy. But basically, RITA is currently supported on 1604 and 1804. I know yesterday someone in the comments said they got it working for 2004, and that's awesome. I can't guarantee that, but it's really cool to hear, and hopefully we'll be expanding support for that soon. Bradley, if you're listening, I'm really sorry. Bradley's one of our software engineers that works on that stuff. So the database we use is Mongo 3.6. It was kind of built for Mongo 3.6, so I wouldn't use 4 yet. There's some big differences with that one, and 3.6 is still fully supported until 2021. For Go building your Go projects, you want to at least have Go 1.12. In the guide, it tells you to do 1.14. These are kind of optional. I love being able to have a shell that I can look at the database with and kind of play around with, and we'll kind of go through that. And then this is the recommended text editor and Go Plus package, which kind of makes it easy to look at your code and get everything situated and linted, because when you compile Go, it'll yell at you if stuff isn't linted correctly. So first, I'd like to kind of go over the structure of your basic RITA project. So almost every request issue that we get involves either something with the importing or something with the outputting. Now, when you look at the repo, it can be intimidating. There's lots of different files here. From like an editing thing standpoint, you're only going to really worry about these 4 folders. So if you want to edit the output, like add commands, print results to the terminal, or do the HTML, your code is really going to only be in these 2 folders. So you can kind of ignore the rest of these and not worry about them. I know that sounds weird, but that's what I consider them to be, and that's how I train new people. Just don't worry about it. There's lots of configuration and database access stuff in there, and you might use things from them, but you can just copy and paste how to use them. And then there's the import route, which is log parsing and ingestion, and then the analysis. So the results of your log inputs. So today, I was just going to go through the output route editing, because most of our issues are with that, and it's easier. And then if you guys like this and you're interested, we can do another one for the import route. Okay, so I thought we'd kind of just go through, this is the database cheat sheet. So when you look at kind of your structure for, just bring this up. Oops. All right. So for example, this is the metadata base. So right now, it sees that I have one in there. Every time you process something, it'll add another database with whatever name you have. So if you call it my super awesome database, there'll be a bunch of them here. So the metadata base kind of is a reference guide for all the other databases you add. And then there's just little descriptions. We hash the different files so we don't accidentally import the same log file into the same data set, keep error logs, but mostly if you need to reference which ones you have, you can reference this first one. And then inside of the individual database, these are just the result collections. We used to keep every log entry. There used to be a con log here and SSL and all of that, but we don't do that anymore to kind of save space and make the import faster. So now we just hold the results that you can look at. All right, and this is just a little breakdown of the metadata record for the A database that I showed you earlier and what all these different things mean. This is just the timestamp range. You guys know what a rolling data set is. So we have an option in RITA. You can either import a whole data set and it'll just be that whole data set, or you can kind of append to it on a rolling scale that you can customize. So that's really good for scripting and stuff. So if you want your database to be updating, you can push in another 2 hours and it'll delete the oldest one to constantly stay at a rotating 24 hours. Hopefully that makes sense. Analyze status in case something happened and it was interrupted. Does anyone have any questions at this point?
The only thing I have is people are saying you're doing a great job so far, Lisa. So.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sam, just yell at me if there's any questions I should answer.
Yeah, we'll
All right.
do.
Oh, great.
So I thought I would start. You guys remember we talked about how there's like the input route and the output route. So I thought we'd start with adding a command. So you can get a commands listing by doing RITA help. All right, so these are our possible commands, right? And what's kind of handy about the way Go is structured is all you need to know is that every command needs its own file in here.
That's great.
And that the command flags are defined in the commands.go file, which you really don't need to edit. So you don't need to worry about like, making sure something calls this file. Because it's in this directory, it'll get called automatically. Commands.go is where the flags are stored for the commands, and you can either use the existing ones or you can add another flag in here. But basically, you just add another file, which makes it super easy. And there's a README in here that kind of helps break that down too in case. All right, so let's take a close look at a really simple one. So show databases is a pretty simple one, really small. So the first thing we have is the name. That's going to be what you run in the terminal. Same with the aliases. The usage, it's for printing out this part here. And then the flags. So you probably want to include the config flag by default for most of these, just so you can use the resources for querying the database and stuff. So just kind of leave it in there. as I say, just copy and paste it and don't worry about it. So then we have the action. And this one queries the database and just gets the names of the collections. This is like the most important part that makes it work. You just add this line at the bottom and it'll include the command. All right, so here's my lazy quick start. So say like Chris assigned me to add a command. So it's the 3 steps. I could try to end up to understand this whole structure, but I'm pretty lazy. So I'll likely just copy an existing file. So let's try that first. Oops. Oh, I guess, sorry guys, I forgot to kind of say what we're trying to do here. So we had a feature request right here, and this user wanted to see kind of a reverse resolve DNS thing. So you would pass in an IP address and it would tell you kind of the domain that it was associated with from that record. So I thought it would be pretty cool if we could kind of try to walk through that one. So that's the command that I'm trying to add here now. All right, so we copied it over. So then step 2, update the name and aliases. So we'll just call it all right, and then the third one, we just want to do like a really simple little test just to make sure it works. So nothing super complicated. Just kind of get rid of all of this. And we'll do like a hello world sort of thing. And then you want to remember to run make. And I forget this all the time and then sit there and wonder why it's not working. All right, so as you can see, it got added. So it was that simple. And then we can just try it. Cool. All right. So what if we need to have some arguments in there? So basically, we just find an example where they use those. Show strokes has that. And then the 2 main differences are just that it has the args usage, which is the 2 main differences are that it has an args usage to kind of like show how it's used, and then that it does the argument verification. So let's add that. For this one, we want the database, obviously, and the IP. So let's add both of those in there. And like, there are better ways to do this. Absolutely. I'm just doing like a really kind of quick sketch up for you guys, so to encourage you guys to just play with it and get it working exactly how you need it to work. Oops. All right. Cool. So that works. That works. Perfect. So we've got our arguments. And yeah, there's a ton of different options if you go here to the documentation. It's a really cool package. There's probably more elegant ways to do this, but this is what we've got. All right, so next we want to build a query. So for that, I usually use RoboMongo, and I usually try to get something to test with figured out first. So let's go to our database and the host names table, and yeah, you can just do a RegEx like this. And these, whoops. All right. So, and that gives us some kind of IPs we can use to test in here. So we want to make sure we can go backwards correctly. So then we write our query. And for that, we just open a shell. And I usually kind of forget the syntax for it. So admittedly,
Hey, Lisa.
yeah.
We have a question here on Discord that I think might actually be really good to cover if you got a moment. They were wondering the best way to get the data set in, just in case, you know, this is somebody completely new to RITA. So they said they downloaded the tar file, but they don't know where to place it.
Oh, absolutely. So you can place it anywhere you want and just untar it. And then to import it, you go make first, and then .rita import. And then you want to do the path. So whatever your path is, you can just do a full path here or from wherever your RITA directory is. And then the desired name right here. If that makes sense. So here I will let me copy in the so I just copied it into the directory I have RITA in. So if we just go RITA import and then hire oops. Is this one empty? Oh, sorry, I just uploaded it in there. All right, so first we'll check the hashes of those files, and then they'll start importing. And so here it's just parsing the files in, and it kind of presses them into a data structure, which is then analyzed and uploaded to Mongo. And then after a little bit, we should be able to see it here too. Yeah, it's right here, and it's still creating it. I think that's the syntax, but yeah, okay, cool. Had to check. So yeah, so first we kind of want to match on that IP address. And you can find examples of all these Mongo queries online. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Mongo, but if you're not, just play around with the queries. There is a lot of help is available online. I had no idea what Mongo was when I started writing RITA, so I kind of just had to play with it until it worked. So yeah, so we want to match it on this subfolder. So kind of just look at the structure that you're seeing here, right? Cool. All right, so we've got some answers here. This is just matching it on that RegEx. So then we want to group it by host, because what we want is an output list of the different resolved things. So we group it and we put that ID as the host, and that creates kind of a unique set of those, so it's not repeated. Just change it to that example too. Oops, that wasn't on here. 217. So yeah, then we just do an ID. Okay, what did I do wrong here? Again, sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. Okay, so probably just formatted it in somehow.
You need to calm after the match.
Thank you. It's never something big. It's always a dumb typo. At least for me, that's the way. I'm always looking for like a big, serious issue, and it's always a typo. All right, so we got our list, and then the final step is just kind of formatting it to your output, because Go's pretty finicky about the structure that you use to accept it. Like if you said it's just an interface, it'll accept anything, but we want to be able to display these things in a specific way. So the formatting is pretty important. For now, I'll just leave it with ID, and we'll make sure we put that into our structure. The other thing I would recommend is that you put a limit in here, and you can pass that in as a parameter. I usually just throw in 1000. That way, if something happens and the query gets messed up, your whole system doesn't crash or anything like that. It's just a safety thing, but you don't have to do that. So yeah, and then I just kind of wanted to show you guys a bonus alternate query. This is one where instead of a list, we just have one item with the number of host names it counted in kind of a clipped list of results to look at. Just kind of depends on what kind of output you want. All right, so this is a step I call slap a BSON on it. That's kind of how we transfer these in here. So first, we need to copy the functionality. So this one queries the database too. So we need to copy the functionality that does that. We don't have any sorts in here, so this just kind of sets things up for you to be able to query from the database. Again, like not something you need to worry about, just a kind of a copy and paste sort of thing. This is the functionality that gets the results. Probably help if I had some more comments in here. I apologize for that. So let's call it and then we'll have to make a little, so we don't have any sort things in here. We do have a limit that we can pass in. Hear this ahead of time. Okay, so right here, we'll just want to create a structure to hold our result. And this part here, the BSON part, has to match whatever this field name was. And this part has to be capitalized. I don't know why, but if you don't capitalize it, it won't work. And you'll spend a lot of time being very frustrated. And I say that from experience. Okay, so yeah, let me just. So here I already kind of set this up a little bit with comments. I just wanted you guys to see that I do just copy it all from this other file just as an example. All right, so basically we're going to call that function, use our IP to call it, just throw in a limit, and you can use the limit flag later, but for now we're just going to skip it. And then what's left is to actually make that function. So if we go over here, we can kind of look at how their function is set up. So they need that resources part that we set up right here. And that'll kind of just get it stuff to query the database. And so you kind of copy it over and just fill it out. That's going to be this right here. So we get our resources. We do the don't worry about it query where we start the Mongo session and make sure it closes at the end. And then, yeah, so the slap a BSON on it thing is just you copy in your thing from here. And then you just go BSON M in front of every beginning query. And that'll make it work. So as you can see, we did that down here. If it's an array like this, and you need to do the BSON thing, it ends up being an interface with these two, and this replaces the first bracket, and another squiggly replaces the last bracket. That one gets a little messy, but all right. So then we can try it. Let's see here. I always like to run make even if I'm not outputting anything, because then you can catch errors early as you do stuff. So then the next step is the output. So each one of our kind of show results. Am I going really slow? Am I too slow, Shelby?
I don't think so, Lisa. I think you're doing good.
All right. So each one of these kind of has commands, kind of has two show options. Just the regular command line output where you can specify the limiter, comma separated, and then kind of a pretty output. What I do is I just copy both of those functions in show strobes human, and all you do is just kind of change the variable type and change what's being output. It's really straightforward. So I did that ahead of time here. So we just changed the top thing to host names because it is just one long list. And then instead of anything else in the string, we just changed it to host name. So it was just a couple word change. All right. And then for the human one, it's also just the same structure for all of them, and you just change the header and change this. So it's pretty much the same changes, but one has a delimiter in it. All right, and then we want to actually like call those functions. So let's see where it does that here. So here it checks if it's human readable, and if the human readable flag is on, and if it's not, it just calls show strobes. So we'll just copy that over. And then we should probably call the function something else. Oh, yeah. Great. And we want to remember to get the flag in there. We want the human readable flag. These are already created, so you can just kind of throw it in there. If we need to change anything else. Just copy this. Sorry again, I'm really nervous, but this is why I had it prepared in case my mind went blank. Like right now. All right. So I just typed in something wrong. So let's make that. And let's see if it works. First, let's kind of pick out my key to use. Let's just copy that one. So, test the database thing. So a database. All right. Now let's try it. Human readable. Put it in the wrong spot. And it outputs a nicely formatted version for us. Cool. So that's how you can kind of do your own queries on the result data and get the kind of output that you want. So yeah, and this is again, don't forget your make and showing that it works. All right, and then I had a little bonus section on using RegEx in here too, but I'm gonna skip that for now so that we can get to Naomi's part. But if you guys want to check out how to alter this to do RegEx like we did in RoboMod, go check this out. All right, Naomi, you want to take over? So this is her HTML section.
So we're gonna be going over how to create a new I spelled that wrong. Anyway, a new HTML report. So we have a few that get generated, such as like beacons and blacklisted IPs and host names. But if we wanted to go ahead and create a new report that represented the domain names that we kind of just been working on, we can. So again, going on with the lazy theme, we can just go ahead and duplicate this file, make a new one. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and duplicate it. All right. So now all we got to do is just start renaming some of these functions, just so that we don't have duplicate functions and they make sense. Most of this stuff is usually just reusing what you already have. Just kind of make it work for what you need it to do. So I wasn't going to use sort for this example, so we can just get rid of this parameter for now. Go ahead and change the name of the report, HTML report. Just make these match. And then let's go ahead and get started on creating this query in Mongo. I know some of you guys in the chat were saying you wanted this to like copy and paste it, and we are doing a blog post about this in the near future, so we can include all the previous queries. If you guys just want it real quick, I can just paste it in the chat for you guys. So there's that. So yeah, this is a little bit more complicated than the previous one, so I'd kind of put this on like a bonus level query. But since the IPs is an array and we want to grab all of the IPs for a given host name, we're going to have to do this fancy reduce. I don't really know exactly how this works, but there are other places where this can be found in RITA, so, you know, just reuse code. This is kind of how it goes. But essentially, this will take all of the IPs that are found and just put them into one array that we can have here. So we just want the hosts and IPs, and then we're going to go ahead and add an IP count by using this size IPs in order to then match and make sure that there's actually at least one IP in this array. Otherwise, we're just going to have like empty arrays and no one wants to see them. So that way kind of filters them out. And then finally, we're going to just get rid of the count because we don't actually need to see it. We just want to use it to calculate it. So you can go ahead and just copy this straight out of Robo or whatever editor you want to use for your queries. And then just take it, paste it. And once again, let's just slap on that BSON. So bson.m. I did have, yeah. Like we mentioned earlier, for every open bracket, just slap on a bson.m in front of it. And then for every open brace, slap on an interface and then an open and closing brace. And then if there's like an actual array that's being used, so for this empty array, we're just going to use interface and then an extra open and close curly brace. Yeah, go ahead and just slap it on. We're going to need an extra comma here. And then here we're going to need an interface. And since
that complicated one.
yeah, so since we have braces here, we're going to want to just get rid of them and replace them with brackets instead of braces. And just taking a quick look. I think it looks good. It'll complain if it's not. Oh yeah, we also should probably just go ahead and add a limit to this. So limit will just make sure that we're not returning like thousands of results because that might be bad. And in this function, we do have a limit that we're passing in. So we can just go ahead and use that. Since we're not using the sort, let's just get rid of the sort real quick. All right. We have this result type. We're not going to be using this because we're just using host names. So let's go ahead and make a new type. And then go ahead and actually define this type. You can just throw it at the top of the page. So we mentioned earlier, you're going to want to have all of your properties in your structs to be capitalized, just so that it works. So the host names are just strings, so that's the type we'll assign to it. And then once again, use the BSON, and then use the same name of the field that your query is returning. So since here the host name is the ID, we're going to want to use ID to reference it. And then we'll have the IPs, and the IPs will be an array of strings. And then just specify what BSON field it's going to use. So that was IPs. So we'll just reference that. And then that's it. So, while we're at it, since we're not using this package, let's get rid of it so that Go doesn't complain. And go ahead and update some of these variables in this query call that we have here. So instead of this BL host query, let's rename this to something that kind of represents what we're doing. And then instead of BL hosts, we're going to use the UDNs there and there. And then we're going to want to update the writer. So we can update it with the type we just made. Make sure we reference that. And then we really only want to display the host name in this column. So let's just get rid of all this. So this actually represents the output of the rows, not the headers. So we don't need to have like IPs here, just want to access the value in the struct. So since this is host name, it matches this here. And we're going to update this to use the IPs property of that struct. And this fancy syntax here just goes ahead and strips the array, puts commas in between the IPs like a pretty format. This was just copied and like pasted from the host names code. So not exactly sure how it works, but it does. We'll just leave it the way it is. Go ahead and update that. Let's see what else we have to update. Instead of sorting by connected hosts, let's go ahead and sort by IPs. Already updated this. Nope, we didn't. Okay, so let's go ahead and update this to use our new type that we made. We got rid of that sort. Cool. Guess you could update the actual names of these functions. That would help. Sure I didn't miss any. I think we're good. Okay, cool. So now we have to go ahead and add this report to the list of reports. So that will be in report.go. So scroll all the way down and there's like the list of all of these different reports that are actually being printed out. So we can just go ahead and copy the code for the host names one and just edit it to make it do what we want. So let's change that. We can just update the error message. And then I go ahead and add the HTML tag to the header of the HTML report, which is up here. Yeah. So here are all of the links in the header of the report that I'll show in just a minute. But in order to be able to have it and click on it, I just go ahead and like copy it, make a new one, and just reference the HTML file that we just made, which has to match the name that we put here, because otherwise it's not going to actually load the correct page. Go ahead and
guys, if this is like confusing on where you find this stuff, I usually just like do the find and project, and whatever name I'm trying to copy from, I'll find all cases that of code mentioning that, and that's the spots where I need to add the new stuff too, if that makes sense.
yeah, and if you use Atom, if you hit Control-Shift-F, you can do a full project search. So if I wanted to look up wherever I mentioned this, just go ahead, copy and paste it, and then it will go ahead and show you all of the places within this open folder where it's mentioned. So go ahead and just add a template for this. So once again, just copy, paste. And then for this header, all we want is hostname and IP. So just leave that one the way it is. And just go ahead and update this one with IPs and then leave it. And then with this new template that we just made, we want to go back to our report fqdns file and just update the template that we're referencing. And then let's go ahead and see if it will build. No, it will not. Okay, so probably forgot some commas or something. Yep, I'll get rid of that. Should not be there. Get rid of this. Another comma. It's always fun. Oh, okay. A little typo. Cool. So let's go ahead and run RITA. And then in order to build the report, we just pass the HTML report command argument. And then you just specify a database. So this is just one that I have on hand. Go ahead and open this one in the database, click on this, and I did something wrong here. Let's see. Probably specified this wrong. Let's go ahead and do this. Okay, cool. So we have up here the new link in the header for this new report, and then we have a whole column of the host names, and then we have a column of IPs, and they're all comma separated. And so in order, if you wanted to add other HTML reports to this, that's pretty much all you have to do, is just a bunch of copy and pasting and then finagling queries and specifying what kind of headers you want to use. And it's pretty standard boilerplate. So I'm sure you guys could figure out how to add some new data types to your reports.
Yeah, we just don't want anyone to worry that this is like something that they need to have a lot of knowledge on, because honestly, that section could use a lot of work. It's been there for a long time, and just go ahead and copy and paste stuff. Like, get it working how you want to work it. Get some features in there. It doesn't have to be pretty.
I'm thinking real quick, I don't see any questions for it, but I saw Naomi do it as you had some errors pop up with your code as you were writing it. Do you want to talk about how you know where the error's coming in at, Naomi?
Sure. So when you run make, there will be some warnings that Go will give you. So here it says that there was an invalid character literal in this file on this line. So I just go to that file on this line. And with Mongo, it gets very, very picky about its commas and its bson.ems. So if you're missing a comma at the end of a line, slap a comma on, slap a bson.em, slap on an interface. Usually be the majority of your issues with it. So I just went through every single line that had an error and just see an unexpected comma, expecting this. So just finagle it and then make sure you clear out all of these. And that's pretty much how I figure out where things are missing. I know at one point it gave me an error about having, there's no field with this name, just because I misspelled this up top to have a capital S. And since I referenced this in several different places, it did cause some errors. So I just went ahead, and since I knew that I used this in several different places, I just made this back to a lowercase character instead, and then that fixed the issue.
Can I just show like one more way you guys to make it that we can look at errors and stuff here? If you guys have Atom and you go to packages, or you install some packages, you can go to preferences here, go to install, and look for a package called Go Plus. And that's what I use here. And then basically it links for you every time you save. And then if there's an error here, it pops it up nicely formatted at the bottom when you save. So you can get like the exact place and line, and you don't have to kind of parse through the command line messages. That makes sense. Any other questions?
Lisa, I wanted to pass one along from GoToWebinar, if I might. Devin asks, have you ever experimented with regularly generating CSVs or structured data versus HTML that you could feed into an Elk Stack or Splunk instance for reporting?
So, yes, it's kind of a complicated story. We used to kind of structure things differently. We had just CSV output. We also used to store everything in Elasticsearch and have that available. There were some lessons learned. Elasticsearch does really well with displaying results, not actually doing your queries for you, which we're trying to make it do instead of Mongo. And my goodness, it didn't do well with that. So what I've always wanted to do was bring back that sort of functionality, but this time just for the results, not for trying to store logs and do the whole query. So absolutely, that's something I'd really like to see happen in the future.
That's great.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you.
Does anyone have anything else?
Yeah, we're 5 minutes past the top of the hour. So we're definitely in the home stretch. If there's any final questions, somebody toss them in now. Otherwise, we are done. And I'm seeing thank yous and rounds of applause, so we'll call that done.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. That was awesome, Lisa. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's very well done, Lisa and Naomi.
Yeah, thanks to the two of you. Much, much appreciated.
I really enjoyed the cadence of it. It wasn't too fast. I think we all watch, a lot of these type of things, and sometimes people just go so fast you can't even catch it. So,
yeah.
Someone asked, what is RITA searching for? So we're trying to, there's a few different kind of modules that we have in RITA. Kind of our primary one is detecting beacons. So data exfiltration that happens regularly on an interval. But we do have some other ones here too. So we can check stuff against blacklisted. We can do certificate analysis. There's just a few different options and they're customizable. So that answers that question. And yeah, if you guys are interested, we can do another session for the analysis editing portion because we just did output formatting today. The analysis one is a little more in-depth.
Awesome. Hey, thank you, folks. Much appreciated.